Buttergate. It all started with a simple question on Twitter. Is your butter harder than it used to be? And lo and behold, I went and I'm like, I thought it was in the wrong part of the closet, that it was too cold. All right, how did you discover it? What are we talking about?
Is
Let's unpack this. Let's
are you saying
turn.
your butter is also harder as well?
I
Oh,
am
really?
absolutely convinced of it. Even it's less spreadable, and maybe now it's my imagination, but I can tell you before you asking me this question, this is why I think it's resonated so much with people. It's like, yeah, it doesn't spread the way it used to. I thought, I don't know, different brands or what I'm buying, but let's churn up the waters here a little bit, or churn up the dairy, because I think you've churned up the industry a little bit. Talk about
Oh,
what's going on with
absolutely.
butter. Talk
I
about.
mean, Dalhousie, I mean, I've received not so flattering emails from different folks from the dairy sector. That I can tell you that the university has received complaints. That's what they do. The lobby does that all the time to intimidate um, people, academics that are trying to get to the bottom of some issues. I mean, the reality is that butter is now harder at room temperature. What we don't know is the reason why. We can only set up hypothesis, and one plausible cause. Uh, because I've been speaking to a lot of different folks in the dairy industry, people I trust, from farm gate to plate, and for months I thought it was a joke at the beginning. I thought I didn't really believe the reports about harder butter, but I've experienced it myself, and thousands of people have actually experienced the same thing, and only to realize that there is a possibility that palm oil is behind all this.
Palm oil.
Palm oil, you can actually feed. It is legal to feed your cows, dairy cows, palm oil to increase fat content, butter fat. And the context created by COVID really makes this situation possible, because last year demand for butter, for example, went up 13%. Everyone was home cooking. And so the pressure.
But that's different than a lot of other commodities. You and I talked about other commodities like, bacon and eggs, and some that actually dipped because just people weren't, it wasn't part of food service, so they weren't going out and getting their Tim Hortons breakfast sandwich. But butter actually went up. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it went up, and of course we have a quota system, and obviously the industry was struggling to get butter fat. It can always import butter fat, but of course farmers, if they don't match their quota, they're in big trouble. And so the one easy way to do it is to actually give palm oil, and again, it is legal now. The dairy chapter in Quebec is stating that 22 to 25% of their dairy farms are actually using palm oil, and it's not being well received by Canadians, which is why I think it's upsetting dairy farmers, because it was really a well kept secret in the industry. I think a lot of people just wanted to move on, and they didn't want the news to come out, or they didn't want to actually show that they're using palm oil, because the baggage from environmental perspective is there, absolutely. From a health perspective, it's unclear whether or not it can impact the health of consumers. We just don't know.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things you start thinking about. The wholesome dairy industry. We're made in Canada support, and then I don't think we grow palm oil here in Canada, so it must be imported from outside of Canada. So I mean, that's one kind of knock on the brand of dairy, I suppose, right? So what you're saying is it's an ingredient. There's no clear plus or minus connection around whether it makes it less or more healthy.
Well,
Uh,
there are a few studies suggesting that if you actually do give more palm oil to cows, it will eventually change the characteristics of cheese and butter. It is documented. Now, whether or not it is the actual cause, we don't know. We would have to actually conduct a lot of research, which would cost a substantial amount of money. Dairy actually does support research quite a bit, but not on that at all. But I can tell you this morning out of Quebec, there is a group of farmers who do intend to present a motion to financially penalize farmers if they do use palm oil. So the practice itself is creating some discomfort in the industry itself. So on the one side, you have boards telling Canadians there's nothing wrong, everything's normal, just and butter's hard because it's colder outside, kind of thing. On the other hand, you have farmers, well, panicking. They're just wondering, well, if this is an issue, and so that's what's going on right now.
So many questions. Talk about. Let's step back a bit and talk about the overall quality of Canadian butter. Now, I seem to remember a survey. Maybe that's an exaggeration calling it a survey. As you ranked butter from the world, how does Canada rank in general in terms of the quality of butter? That's probably a couple of different metrics, but your sense of. I remember seeing Canada's butter wasn't ranked very highly. It wasn't at the top of the list. Any sense of overall how the butter industry is ranked?
That's a good question. I would say I'm not sure how it ranks across the world, but I would say that typically Canadians would see dairy products as being of high quality in Canada overall. I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
they do. I certainly appreciate dairy products in Canada. They're good quality products, and that's why this news coming out is sort of counterintuitive, I
It's a
guess.
bit of a jolt, right? Wait, there's an ingredient in there you weren't telling me about, or
It's an eye-opening fact for a lot of
Mhm.
Canadians. They just didn't know. I would argue that probably most Canadians just didn't know, and so they may not understand supply management and the economics of the sector, but they get palm oil. They understand what it
Yeah.
is, and
I mean,
they understand how it could impact, different parts of the world, and how it could actually impact animal and human health as well.
it's not as if they're pouring the palm oil in with the butter. I mean, they're giving it to the cows. So I guess it's also the case that there's a lot of foods I don't know what goes into them. That
Well,
probably is
there's
a
there's
very
actually palm oil in hundreds of products you and I eat
right,
every day almost.
right.
The thing about this case, which makes it unusual, is that it is a supply management issue. I mean, because farmers actually follow specific protocols, and they have this blue cow campaign showing Canadians that this product is of high quality, it's good, and basically right now it's seen as a bit of a breach in this moral contract we have with the industry, because unlike Nutella and other products, we are partially subsidizing the dairy industry right now. It is highly protected. There is a quota system in place. So, and milk is essentially a public good.
Right.
We've talked
Right.
about this before in
Yeah. Yeah.
Canada. And so that's why when it comes to, unlike chips or anything else, milk is a bit different and it should be considered differently.
Well, let's talk about any reaction you've seen from the political side. You've mentioned on the podcast before you have a ton of respect for the Quebec agriculture minister, thinking
Yes.
he was one of the top of his class, so to speak, in Canada. Any reaction from the political side to this news?
Yes, absolutely. So, for one, the ag minister in Quebec had no idea that dairy farmers were using palm oil.
Never asked the question, I guess. Hey, by the
Well,
way,
I mean,
you fellas using palm oil? Like, probably is not a question he'd think to ask, I guess. I don't
and he openly supports the sector, but of course, when he learned about it, he felt, this could be a PR problem, and it is, and so that's why. I mean, I have a lot of faith in dairy farmers. They know how to do the right thing. It's just boards, they tend to politicize everything, and they actually spend more time with ministers and politicians than farmers themselves. So I do hope that the right path will prevail. I actually do believe that we shouldn't be giving palmatic acids to dairy cows in Canada because of supply management, essentially, and because I think Canadians expect high quality products. And the other reason why we believe palm oil is likely the cause, if you actually buy organic butter or butter coming from a grass-fed cow, you wouldn't have that problem. The butter has remained the same, which is so all off quota butter hasn't been affected by this.
Well, I tell you, you're surfacing a good argument for this household. I'm the let's buy the best butter we can buy, which tends to be much more expensive. My wife is butter's butter. So, good outcome for this podcast.
That's right.
Let's
And our household is 50-50. We're margarine and butter, but I'll be honest with you, until we see change in the sector, we're probably either going to buy organic butter or no butter at all.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.